You're listening to Focus on Africa on the BBC World Service. The global race for supremacy in the lucrative mobile phone market has a new leader. The South Korean conglomerate Samsung has officially become the world's leading mobile phone maker, overtaking the Finnish firm Nokia. Samsung, with its popular Galaxy smartphones, and Apple, with the iPhone, have cut deeply into Nokia's market share. But what does this battle of brands and products tell us about the African markets for the so-called smartphones? Lawrence Zikusoka is an ICT expert from Uganda who has worked in several African countries.
Well, it's not very surprising that Nokia has been surpassed by Samsung. I think that they've been planning this for a long time, and it was just a matter of timing. When Nokia and Microsoft were trying to develop a platform, they were latecomers into the game. I mean, multiple platforms were being set up by Samsung, and this helped them to corner the market.
So that's the picture globally. What about in Africa? What sort of phones are the most popular? Are they smartphones as well, and why?
It's picking up now. If you look at it historically, Africa has been a voice-based market, and over time, with the rollout of networks from West Africa to East Africa to Southern Africa, you've seen that network infrastructure has been put in place, which has now enabled applications and media to come on top of it. So it was a work in progress. Plus, the fact that Africa didn't hop into landline connectivity. So there weren't investments in landline networks, but mostly in mobile networks. So it's come as a chain of events. Voice communications, internet and data are now the next range of services that the emerging middle class will expect to have.
What is a smartphone? What does it look like? What does it do to people, for those who don't know?
In a simple sense, a smartphone is an ordinary phone like a computer, slightly different dimensions, which predominantly has an enabling platform, which makes it possible for people to use it as a computer. In simple terms, the kind of applications that people are looking for are in an internet-based economy. There's growth for new kinds of websites and information sharing like East Africa Business.com and West Africa Business.com. So people would like to have access to information, be it internet sites and or just routine applications. I remember recently in South Africa, they've developed a tourism application, but also within South Africa, there's also other applications for businesses and the local economy.
It does remain the case, though, that internet access is still quite expensive, but even more so in Africa.
Exactly.
So how is it that Samsung have been able to overcome this?
If you remember in the 1990s when traditional GSM networks were set up in Africa, the cost was very high. But over the last 10 years, we can see that voice costs have dropped down. This will be the same case with respect to data and mobile internet and mobile broadband. The way that Samsung is looking at entering the market is really by positioning themselves as a preferred option to iPhones. So they probably looked very carefully at the iPhone strategy and Apple's strategy and tried to combat that in the context of Africa.
Having said that, though, Nokia still remains a very popular brand, even in Africa as well.
Very much so. You're right.
And so are we going to see this continuing ding-dong between the two, battling for supremacy both across the African continent and around the world?
For sure. I mean, smartphones is about prestige. It's about addressing the issues of cost of data. It's about having a platform that is integrated with a number of different systems and is relevant. I think I'd like to see in Africa more localized information and content and applications. And I think that over time, this is going to take place and has been taking place. I remember recently in Nigeria, when I was working out there, we noticed applications specifically related to health and also applications related to exam registration and results and things of that sort. Although those were not smartphone-based, it's making the case that people on the continent are looking at technology and how it can address a whole range of issues.
That was Lawrence Zikusoka, a Ugandan ICT expert.